We're going to get into one of the world's great mining regions, both from mineral wealth perspective, also from a regulatory perspective, very mining-friendly jurisdiction. It is the great province of Manitoba. And we're entitling this panel discussion More to Explore. We love the exploration theme. Now, listen, before I introduce today's moderator, who is Shastri Ramnath, who will be well known to a lot of our audience, a very leading light in our mining industry. We're going to show my understanding is, Laura, we're going to run the video first, and then we'll come back and I'll introduce Shastri. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I will start the video right now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
This is the one.
All right, beautifully done. Excellent video. I like the way it highlighted some of those great historic and modern names like Snow Lake and Flin Flon. Now here, to get the conversation really going, we are happy to be joined by Shastri Ramnath. Shastri is a professional geoscientist. She's also an award-winning entrepreneur with over 20 years of global industry experience. She's president and CEO of Exiro Minerals Corp, which is a private mineral exploration company that she co-founded and is also a significant shareholder in. In 2012, she co-founded and currently co-owns Oryx Geoscience, which is a geological consulting firm. She has worked in various technical and leadership roles, including FNX Mining, where she was a key member of the exploration and resource team that discovered the Victoria and Morrison deposits, and subsequently with Bridgeport Ventures, a publicly listed company, where she was president and CEO. Shastri, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome to the Global Mining Symposium.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I trust you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, your video is working great. Your audio is sounding great. I will turn it over to you to introduce your esteemed panelist guests.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the introduction. I am just going to switch right on over to Minister Pedersen. Welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Good afternoon, Shastri, and I bring greetings from Premier Brian Pallister, Premier of Manitoba, and my Department of Agriculture and Resource Development. And thank you to the Northern Miner for setting up this forum, and welcome to all your guests.
Thank you. So let's get down to business. So Manitoba has an exceptional mineral profile, including hot commodities such as the base metals, nickel, copper, zinc, and precious metals such as gold. And of course, there's strategic metals in the province, lithium, cesium, cobalt, etc. The province has also been known to be underexplored for diamonds and graphite. We also know that the Precambrian Shield is well endowed with world-class deposits that have been mined for decades. However, as we both talk about often, there's large areas that remain underexplored. And these are areas that have a huge amount of potential for tier 1 discoveries. So we know that Manitoba has rated in the top 20 of the Fraser Institute's most attractive jurisdictions for about 21 of the last 23 years. And recently, we know that it's dropped a bit. But rather than ask you why it's dropped, I think it's more important to talk about what you are doing to make Manitoba once again one of the most attractive places on the planet to explore.
Yeah, thanks, Shastri. And You know, as we see the resurgence in investment in mining, Manitoba has so much to offer. You mentioned our exceptional mineral profile, and I don't need to go through that again, but we have clean, green, renewable electricity. We have our Manitoba Mineral Development Fund. We put $20 million into a fund to jumpstart mineral development initiatives. We are strategically located in North America with road, rail, and port connections. We reduced our provincial sales tax from 8% to 7%. We've reduced other taxes, all while dealing with the pandemic, as everyone is quite well aware of, and the associated costs with that pandemic. We've restructured our department, and I'll just speak to this a little bit more later. You know, every government says they're open for business, but we want to show that we're open for business and look to earn your investments.
Okay, well, all of the points you've mentioned are good reasons why companies are exploring in the province already. And I just want to point out, you know, we've already talked about Oryx Geoscience, the company that I co-own and operate out of Winnipeg. We also know that there are companies that are established and working in the province, and those include big companies like Hudbay, Vale, Alamos. We have Scott Parsons here we're going to talk to in a few minutes, Yamana, and there's several juniors who are active in the province, including 1911 Gold, Voyager Mineral Explorers, Rockcliffe, Canalaska, BWR, and one of the newer companies is Willeson Metals, who will also be speaking today. You have formed the MLCME, which is the Minister's Liaison Committee in Mining and Exploration, of which I'm the chair. And we have been putting recommendations forward to you and speaking regularly with you and your team. So the first ones were around permitting and incentives that we put forward. And some of the incentives that we've suggested are forming a fund such as SIDEX in Quebec, as well as forming programs like GPAD, like they have in Ontario for Jeep. Can you give us an update on the progress of some of the changes you are making that have been recommended to you and your government?
Sure, Shastri. In 2020 at the PDAC convention in Toronto, back when we could meet in person, I had made the commitment to fix the permitting system. And so I'm very happy to say that we now have a single window permitting service within the department. We also have our First Nations Mineral Development Protocol, and I just want to applaud and encourage companies who are working to develop early working relationships with our First Nations community. Ultimately, the responsibility will be of our Manitoba government to do the Section 35 consultations, but those early relationships are so important. Our government has also adopted a concierge service so that companies will allow them to connect with the right services within the government. There's more than just the permitting, there's the infrastructure issues, and we can connect you with those needed departments in order to make your development go forward.
Okay, so thank you. I do know that Manitoba's had a tough run with COVID, and I know that you're right in the middle of it right now. And the number one thing, obviously, we need to do is keep people safe. But we also know that mining has, in the past, significantly contributed to the Manitoba economy, and that exploration and mining are a clear opportunity, you know, in the near future to actually help rebuild the economy as we emerge out of COVID. So I guess oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, we absolutely see the opportunity, Shastri, and yes, just like every other jurisdiction, we've had our go with COVID here too. But we've continued to look at down the road past COVID and how we will rebound from this, and we'll continue to work with the industry and Manitoba's Mining Liaison Committee to advance our mining industry. We invite companies to come and have a look at what Manitoba has to offer. We're also looking forward to the Central Canada Mining Exploration Convention this November to continue this important conversation, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. As the Northern Miner has proven, we can do these virtually. We'd much rather have you here in person. Manitoba's goal is to be the top attractive mining jurisdiction on the planet. And that's what we're going to be, and we're going to make it happen.
Great. Well, thank you for bringing up the convention. I know that there's some question as to whether or not they're going to run it this year, but I do encourage anyone who's listening to keep on top of it. And if they can ever come to Manitoba for the conference, I know in 2022 that they are going to have hoping to have an in-person one, providing everything goes really well. And I think that coming to Manitoba and coming to Winnipeg, people will really see what Manitoba has to offer. And I always like the license plate says friendly Manitoba. So we should maybe change it to Friendly Mining Manitoba. So
we'll work on that one, Shastri. But Friendly Manitoba just is our moniker, and we go by that. And just thanks for the opportunity to join you today. I watched the previous couple of presentations. There's really exciting stuff happening in the mining industry. I wish you and your company and the organizers a wonderful event. Mining is the place to be right now, and we welcome you to Manitoba to come and make it happen.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. And I look forward to catching up with you later. And we will work with you to make Manitoba one of the top jurisdictions on the planet for mining investment. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to move on. The next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to get into our panel, and I'm going to introduce them in a moment. But I'm first going to ask Laura Daly if you can launch the poll question. We have a question for the audience. So I believe it'll pop up at the bottom of your screen. Oh, there it comes. And so this question is about what would you like what would it take for you to invest more in exploration investments in Manitoba? So we're not going to keep track of who says what, but more so we're curious to see what the audience or what the listeners have to say. So if you can all take a moment here to vote. There we go. Oh, permitting. Looks like it's winning here.
Yeah, we're getting some good engagement on this one, so I'm going to let it run for a little bit more because people are still voting on this one. And I'll hit the end polling in 1 second, and you'll be able to see all the results.
Okay. Okay, I believe we've ended the polling.
Yes, that's right. Yep, these are the results now.
Okay, well, this, in one way, we realize that permitting is still a challenge, and we're still working through it. But on the other hand, I think, sorry about that. On the other hand, it's nice to, we are working through it, and I know that the government has rolled out, they have a new director, Heather Martins, who is running with the permitting, and hopefully we're going to see very soon some key announcements from the permitting group. Also the additional incentives. I had a meeting yesterday with some key people in government talking about some of these incentives and talking about what other jurisdictions are doing. So hopefully we will be able to see that happen in Manitoba. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's now move on to the panel. So I'd like to start by thanking our three guests who've taken the time to attend. For the purposes of today's discussion, the panelists are all involved with exploration programs in the Lynn Lake Belt. And I do want to say an extra thank you because I know that behind the scenes, when you get involved with doing these discussions, there is a lot of work and everybody's taken time out of their schedules. So I'll start by introducing them and then we'll jump into the questions. So we have Scott Parsons, VP of Exploration for Alamos, who's been running regional beltwide exploration programs in the Lynn Lake Belt for the last 3.5 years. He is also a member of the Minister's Liaison Committee in Manitoba and has been working with me on that front for 2 years. We also have Don McCallum, Councillor, and Douglas Hart, former Chief of Marcel Colombe First Nations. And I would like to acknowledge that they are from Treaty 5 territory. They both work closely with Alamos and are calling in from the band office located in Lynn Lake, northern Manitoba. So hopefully we'll have some good reception with them. I know last year's been challenging for the northern communities, and we appreciate that they're able to join us today. Finally, we have the newest entrance to the belt, Felix Lee, CEO of Willeson Metals Corp, who most recently just finished his tenure as the president of PDAC. And of course, this is a role that most people wouldn't envy, considering the last two PDACs took place during a global pandemic. So Willeson is a younger company with exploration projects in and around the Lynn Lake Belt. Okay, so Scott, we're going to start with you. Are you there? Let me see. Oh, there you are. Okay. So Scott, Alamos has been operating in Manitoba for about the last 6 years. What has Alamos's experience been operating in northern Manitoba?
Well, I guess first of all, thanks. It's great to be here on the panel discussion, and thanks to the Northern Miner for organizing the symposium. Just as some background, yeah, Alamos has been active in Manitoba for almost 6 years. We acquired the Lynn Lake Gold Project in 2015 from Carlisle Goldfields. Since then, from a project development standpoint, we've issued a feasibility study in 2017. In the second quarter of 2020, we filed an environmental impact statement for the project. So if the project's built, it'll produce an average of 143,000 ounces of gold over a 10-year mine life. The project would also have a significant positive impact in Manitoba, specifically in the northern region, where we're estimating 400 full-time jobs and contributing over $1 billion to Manitoba's GDP over the life of the project. From an exploration perspective, there's significant potential to grow the reserve and resource base at Lynn Lake. We demonstrated this recently by adding 500,000 ounces in mineral reserves, so going from 1.6 million ounces in our feasibility study to 2.1 million ounces at year-end 2020. There's also significant potential for new discoveries across the Lynn Lake Greenstone Belt. So our teams are currently ramping up right now for our 2021 summer field program, and we're going to get started here in the next week or two on advancing a number of those greenfields targets across the belt. So I guess your question about experience in operating in Manitoba over the past 6 years. Well, for me as a geologist, what I like most about Manitoba is the exploration potential. And you could have guessed I would say that as a geologist. And it's underexplored compared to other jurisdictions. In my mind, one of the most critical components for favorable jurisdiction when I'm looking to invest money in exploration is mineral discovery. It's the geology and really the prospectivity of the mineral systems in which you're exploring. So right off the top, and we can look at Manitoba and start with the Thompson Nickel Belt is world-class in terms of nickel deposits. Base metal deposits, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, they're all in the Trans-Hudson origin. Over to gold deposits occur in multiple terrains, both Archean and Paleoproterozoic. Rice Lake and Oxford Stull in the Superior Province, Flin Flon, Snow Lake, and Lynn Lake in the Trans-Hudson origin. So based on this, and specifically these really well-endowed mineral systems in the province, I can say with a really high level of confidence as a geologist, there's other significant mineral deposits to be discovered in Manitoba, and hopefully at our Lynn Lake project as well. And one of the challenges, if you look at exploring in the Canadian Shield, and it's no different whether you're in Northern Ontario or Northern Manitoba or in Lynn Lake, is that we're exploring in areas that have extensive superficial cover. So these are glacial deposits that were deposited in essentially blanketing underlying bedrock. So they're complex in terms of where they formed and where they came from. So I guess needless to say, you have prospective geology. It doesn't always equal an easy discovery, but what it does equal is an opportunity. You can use these superficial materials. If you use them correctly as a tool instead of a hindrance, you're going to have discoveries. And combining that's glacial materials as a tool for exploration with your traditional boots on the ground geologic mapping, bedrock prospecting, geochemistry. Add in new innovative geophysical techniques like the Heli-Falcon gravity gradiometer survey, high resolution drone magnetics. You take that, and in our case, we're applying it within a constantly evolving greenstone belt scale mineral systems framework. It's an unbelievable opportunity for discovery, and we're excited to make some discoveries. So I'm just going to step away, I guess, and shift gears from geology to infrastructure. And one of the key points in Manitoba is energy and road infrastructure. So it's a competitive advantage for the province, and it can be leveraged further as we move forward. Manitoba is one of the lowest cost jurisdictions in Canada for clean energy. It's an extremely attractive proposition when you're looking at developing a mining project. So Manitoba can leverage this advantage over other jurisdictions to attract investment. That's obvious. Ongoing investments by the province in both electrical and road infrastructure will ensure that this clean and affordable electricity, but also the people and equipment can get to the mining projects to power and operate the projects. It's also critical for the long-term success of the mining sector in Manitoba, particularly exploration is starting to expand to more remote reaches of the province, getting away from the existing road and power infrastructure. We know, I think Shastri, we've talked about it before, we put a road in, it's going to lead to increased exploration, which will ultimately lead to more discoveries given how the geologic potential of the province. And the last point I'll touch on in my experience in Manitoba is on the Minister's Liaison Committee for Mining and Exploration, which you referred to in the introduction. So I'm a volunteer committee member on that committee. This was established by Minister Pedersen, who just spoke, for industry to work with government with the ultimate objective of trying to attract increased investment to Manitoba into the mining, exploration, and mineral processing sector. So firstly, I applaud Minister Pedersen for having the vision and that leadership to create the committee with the mandate for the committee to focus on providing the government with recommendations to make Manitoba the premier jurisdiction, as Minister Pedersen said, in the planet for mining and exploration. So we've made several recommendations to date, permitting and incentives. We'll have many more recommendations on the way.
Well, thank you. And I think, you know, you and I have experienced that the government's engagement in the committee has been really good. And it does take time to roll out our recommendations, and it does take time for the government to digest and absorb. And it's been really hard with COVID. So, but I think we both share the sentiment that the minister and and the government have been listening. Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit to Dawn. I believe you're there. You're phoning in from Northern Manitoba, so you're not online. I just want to check. Can you hear me okay?
Dawn, if you don't mind, you can unmute at the bottom of your screen. There you go.
Okay, Dawn.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. And I just want to confirm that Douglas is with you.
Actually, no, he had something else to do, so he couldn't make it.
Okay, well, we have you.
He had a few items that he had to do that he had to take care of.
Okay.
Basically, he had to travel.
Okay, well, just to start with, your community has been working closely with Alamos for the past few years. And we know that in today's world, engaging with communities early and often is key to maintaining a good relationship. So just a question for you as a topic right now that's of interest to like all of the industry. What does pre-engagement mean to your community?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me here. And well, in regards to pre-engagement, what it does, I think it would help to achieve specific goals. We're working towards planning and implementation of these goals with the mining industry as well as government. The First Nation, like our First Nation and the industries, mining industries in the mining sector can interact to share. We can share information, develop a positive working, and create partnerships. That's the main thing that pre-engagement would part of the discussion. We would like to be informed so that we can develop plans that benefit our First Nation. Not just for a company to come in and then go. So those are things that we could discuss, and also with pre-engagement, you gotta understand what land claims are, the TLE agreement. We can just have discussions on that as well, and we look at the environmental damage that was done in the past. That's something we want to discuss for the future, so that doesn't happen again. For example, with the Shared Gold mine or the Fox Lake mine, there was extensive damage to the environment with those two mines, and that's not the only one.
Yeah.
And commitments, commitments to support our First Nation from mining companies, so we can all this stuff can be discussed. This is and I think that's why I find pre-engagement to be very important.
Well, and I think in the industry, and I think it's important that people understand that, in the industry, relationships are really important. We go to PDAC, we go to these conferences so that we can build relationships and friendships and business partnerships and so on and so forth. And it's not any different from talking with you and other Indigenous communities. It's not any different for the communities, the Northern communities. So I guess my question for you is, if you can articulate for the industry why relationships are specifically important to the communities and why relationships are important from your perspective.
Well, we have our traditional territories. We have our cultural areas, and we've been nomadic for quite some time, and we use a lot of these land areas, land use, and the companies and the industries would have to understand that, and especially where they're going to be exploring, for example, they have to prevent minimal damage. So that's something that we have to discuss. And one important aspect of engagement is to develop a resource, I would think, is a resource management system, so that the environment in our traditional and cultural areas are kept in pristine conditions. It's like a monitoring thing. Yeah. And to help build and support our endeavors that would benefit the First Nation, training, employment, to understand what could be planned and what can be achieved, putting that all into perspective, and to make connections between our First Nation, the mining industries, governments, to deliver, an increased efficiencies through something that's more tailored and better coordinated policies and services for our community, as well as the industry.
Yeah.
And, kind of like how would you say, to share with the First Nation that the benefits that would come with this.
Yeah. Well, one of the next questions I'm going to ask you is about business, but I'm just going to switch gears quickly over to Felix. So Felix, you are there? You can turn off your camera and join us in the spotlight. There you are.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to turn on my camera a little earlier, but I'm here.
Okay, so you've had an interesting few years working with the PDAC as the president, and you've been exposed to the global mining industry your whole career, and you are in the know regarding mining friendliness, like the mining friendliness of jurisdictions around the world and across Canada. So I guess the question for you is, you're now the CEO of Willeson Metals Corp, a company focused on doing business in Manitoba, and you clearly like Manitoba as a jurisdiction. So the big question is why?
Well, thank you, Shastri, and the Northern Miner as well for giving me the chance to be a part of this panel. It's fantastic to be here. And Shastri, yes, to answer your question, I am really, really very excited about Willeson being in Manitoba. I have, as I said, been exposed to a number of mining jurisdictions over the course of my career. I spent 35 years pretty much exploring around the world, including Canada. It's great to be back home, if you will, exploring, in my home country. And what is it about Manitoba? Well, at the end of the day, it's as Anthony Vaccaro said it right at the start. It's one of the great mining regions in the world. Manitoba has great geology, and it has enjoyed a very long and distinguished history of exploration. It's probably known as a base metal province to most people, but let's not kid ourselves. There's gold in Manitoba, and lots of it. And as for Willeson, I'm extremely excited about what we have in front of us. Willeson has 4 very large gold properties in the Lynn Lake area of Manitoba, covering some 240 square kilometers across some of the key structures that define the Lynn Lake Greenstone Belt. And that in itself astonishes me. To be able to assemble such a large land position is very difficult to do, and certainly very hard, if not impossible to do in, say, Northern Ontario or Northern Quebec. And I think that in itself speaks to how the province really has kind of been overlooked in a way, and gives you some sense of the magnitude of opportunities that exist in the province. And let me be clear, Willeson is focused on gold. I'm focused on gold, but the opportunities extend well beyond just gold. I'm going to put on my PDAC hat here for a second and just basically say that it's a really exciting time for the industry. We are poised to play a very, very critical, a very key role in the electrification of the economy, in making that transition to a low carbon future happen. And in the case of Manitoba, if you think about it, I believe the province produces something of about close to 18 of the 31 minerals and metals that are listed on Canada's newly defined critical minerals list. That was released. That list was released at the PDAC convention just a couple of months ago. And if you think about the fact that Manitoba produces so many of these minerals and metals, you have to recognize that there's a huge opportunity in this province for both industry and for the province of Manitoba and for the Manitoban people. And on top of all of that, I guess, what else excites me about the province of Manitoba is all of the very good and very constructive advocacy that's going on. And as a result of that, we see a very, very supportive provincial government. And I think the fact that, we're here at a Manitoba government organized panel discussion, we've just heard from the minister himself. I think that speaks to the level of support that the provincial government is giving our industry. And it's critical. It's critical that Manitoba puts its best foot forward. It's critical that Manitoba recognizes, and I believe the government really truly is recognizing the fact that Manitoba not only competes with other provinces and territories to be the prime destination for exploration and the place to spend exploration dollars, But Manitoba is also competing with pretty much the rest of the world when it comes to that. So getting the support of the government is fantastic. The opportunities are all here. They're tremendous opportunities. And so really, Shastri, to answer your question, it's just a really exciting time to be in Manitoba. And Willeson is happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to have one more quick question for each of the panelists, and then we're going to switch over to a question and answer period. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to keep their answers short, because I know that we're behind schedule already today. Okay, Scott, back to you. It sounds like Alamos shares Willison's philosophy on discovery potential in Manitoba and, of course, in the Lynn Lake Belt. You have also partnered with Marcel Colombe First Nation, and you've launched a land-based youth development project with the support of the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund, which is a $20 million fund supporting the North. What can you tell us about the project?
Well, Shastri, that's right. In 2020, Alamos and Marcel Colombe First Nation launched the youth development project you're referring to, which I will note is funded in part by the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund, which I'll touch on in a second. You're already going to give an overview of the fund. So this program is a great partnership to provide a foundation for future training opportunities. So these opportunities could lead to potential employment at the proposed Lynn Lake project, which I referred to earlier. We look forward to continuing to develop these training opportunities with Marcel Colombe as we move forward. Just to touch on the Mineral Development Fund, it's delivered and administered by the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce. It has a $20 million budget to provide opportunities for Indigenous partnerships, increase local employment and economic development opportunities. Just as I mentioned, if the Lynn Lake Gold Project is built, it will result in over 400 jobs over the construction and operating phases of the project. And we do intend to hire locally and regionally first. Just highlights how important it is to continue to expand those training opportunities and develop the local talent. And I also recognize the efforts that are underway by both Manitoba and the Canadian governments to make skills and training a priority. This includes the Canada-Manitoba Job Grant, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to support Northern Manitoba communities. I guess it was my final point. I was really pleased last week to see the announcement by the government on investments in providing high-speed internet to rural and parts of Northern Manitoba. So this is critical for communities, for economic development, but it's also really, really key for remote training initiatives. So all communities should have access to high-speed internet, and I know this is going to go a long way to doing that. I can encourage the government to continue to evaluate options with various partnerships to work towards ensuring that all communities in the province have access to the best quality of connectivity possible. And from our perspective, this will really support our ability to continue developing our training programs across Northern Manitoba.
That will definitely be a game changer if it's easier to communicate through the internet, for sure. Okay, Don, I believe you're still there.
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Okay, so back to your original points. Now, we know that you've had the land-based youth development project in partnership with Alamos. What kinds of other things would you like to see from industry that would better the Northern First Nations communities?
Well, with the industries, it would definitely provide employment as well as training that would benefit our First Nation people. But that set aside, too, like for example, the land-based youth project that we've been doing here, like we've been developing cabins here and there within our traditional territories, and we let the youth and the elders use those cabins for medicine gathering, etc. Those are the type of projects that Alamos and the First Nations have worked with. But there's also like opportunities, like for example, companies that do come in, like for drilling, like exploration companies. We would like employment for our people within those areas, because generally right now, as it is, there's not very many people within our First Nation are employed with the drilling companies. It would be also nice if we could even get a drill and do our own drilling thing. That's one of the things we'd like to get, as an example. Also, there'll be a lot of economic benefits for us. One of them would be for companies, for example, with Alamos to get a heavy equipment, to purchase some heavy equipment so that we could be part of the workforce in the Alamos gold mine, as well as employment of ecotourism. That's another aspect that we would like to go into. And this, because we want these things to be permanent. Because the company, like for example, will come and go. Like there's only a lifespan of so many years, and we'd like to do something else after that. If there's going to be no mining industry available within this area. So yeah, like we'd like to delve into some economic opportunities if there are any, the ones they do come out, because that's part of the planning that we have to do with the Alamos in our pre-engagement, or not only Alamos, but Willeson Metals, for example, you know, have these discussions.
Yeah.
So we can plan on that for the future of our First Nation. Like we'd like to, what happened in the past is the companies would come and go, and we'd never benefit from anything. Like it was always just come and then they'd go. And there was nothing for us after that, you know. So we do want something that will be permanent, that we can use.
Yeah.
That's something we can discuss with companies that do come in with us and partner with us. Yeah. I think like we're willing to have the companies come in because we see it as a benefit for our First Nation, and that's what. So we will not hesitate. We will get them to come in and then work with them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, probably a good way to look at it is that mining can be a first industry to come into an area, but then, you know, building a sustainable businesses within your communities will allow you to open up to other industries like tourism in northern Manitoba. So, okay, well, thank you for that. We're going to move on to the very last question. We're short on time, and I know they're already behind schedule. So let's keep this last one short. Felix, to you. What would you like to see happen in Manitoba to support Willeson in the next 2 years?
Well, Shastri, that's very, very simple. I would love to see the government continuing to do what it's already doing, streamlining, making much more efficient your existing regulatory environment. I would also love to see continued strong advocacy in the province. As I mentioned before, that advocacy work is critical to building relationships. It's critical to educating all stakeholders about the importance of mining and mineral exploration in the province. And it's critical to ensuring that Manitoba is able to put its best foot forward and able to compete with all jurisdictions around the world as a place to explore, a place to mine, and a place to spend exploration and development dollars. So that's pretty much it. Simple.
Thank you. Okay, so before we move on to questions, we have one more skill testing question on Manitoba. So if everybody's ready, Laura Daly, if you're ready to launch the last poll question, we're curious to know. This one is, the question is simply, of the 31 commodities included in Canada's critical minerals list, how many are produced and explored for in Manitoba? Oh, we see there are some people who are who have studied this. Well, that is correct. And I'm going to whip through that list. We've got, it is 18. It is 18. And of those specific 31 metals, it is cesium, chromium, cobalt, copper, graphite, helium, which that one surprised me, lithium, magnesium, nickel, PGMs, potash, rare earths, tantalum, titanium, tungsten, uranium, vanadium, and zinc. So that is the 18. Okay, so we're going to flip over to questions. I think I'm going to just cut my closing here and flip over to the questions. So do we have any, Laura?
We do. We have one. It's in the Q&A section, but I'll read it to you if you wish.
Oh, I can see it.
Can you see it? Perfect.
I can. So what changes would you like to see on improving the permitting process, particularly on environmental permitting and impact assessment? BC has a number of useful guidance documents on this to define information and environmental protection. Do you see value in government guidance documents? So I think this one is probably well positioned for Scott, if you could follow the question. And then there is another question that I'll ask Minister Pedersen right after this.
Yeah, our permitting team would definitely be best suited to answer that question. I know there's some details for sure that would go into that, as my focus is primarily on exploring the belt. But you know, we are following the process that's in place as part of our permitting the permitting process. I could get back to you perhaps, John, on additional details or feedback from from our permitting team as they work through the process on improvements that we could recommend if there are any to the process.
Well, and I think one of the things that we did put forward with our permitting recommendations was in that one-stop shop was to have documents that you can go and it's one place you look for everything. So I think that that is covered in how they're rolling out the changes to permitting. Okay, so the next question is actually one of my favorites for Minister Pedersen. I'm going to put you on the spot here. It is, with all of the changes happening in Manitoba, and all the differences, like things that you're doing differently as a government to welcome industry to the province, how are you going to market the province? Now, clearly today, where the government has championed this with the Northern Miner, this event in particular, but what are some of the ways that you'd like to see the province get marketed?
Thanks, Shastri. This is a primer I got question period coming up in an hour here, so this is a good primer for that. So. Obviously we got CMAC coming, PDAC, we've been a participant in there, and thanks Felix for all your hospitality when we were able to be there in person. We've got a website to the permitting question, we've got a website set up now to go there, we've got staff working on that. Anybody who shows an interest in Manitoba, it's about contacting us and then us getting back to you to answer those questions we need to approach it like a business, and if you're not growing, that's not a business-like way to be. So we want to continue to grow, and so we need to be proactive in reaching out around across Canada and around the world, really, to showcase what we've got here. And thanks to Northern Miner, this is one way of doing it, and we'll continue to take on. We got CMAC coming up again, and things like that we'll just continue to work on. We need to get the message out. Manitobans, I've always said Manitobans are way too humble. We need to be a little bit more like the Texans and start bragging, not quite as bad as the Texans, but we need to start bragging about what we have in Manitoba. And I thank Felix and Scott for your kind words there too, because it shows we have potential. Scott, when you mentioned the infrastructure issues, I know there's some hydro and some road issues in particular with yours. We need to look at this as a larger project too, not just for Alamos, but there's lots of potential in that Lynn Lake area. So doing those improvements not only gets Alamos going, but it's where we need to take the long-term view on these infrastructure program. And thanks for mentioning the high-speed broadband. That's been in the works for a long time. That's a game changer all across Manitoba. I live in southern Manitoba, and we liken that to the electricity came to rural Manitoba in the 40s and 50s, and this is a game changer for these days.
Well, thank you, Minister Pedersen. And I think one thing I do want to add too is that as soon as you can come to Toronto, we are going to go around Bay Street and I'm going to take you to meet people, because I think that Manitoba is not as known as they should be. And I will give the government credit, because I've seen documents in the background where you are going to be marketing the province really well. So I look forward to the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Just an excellent job. Listen, I think the potential and all that Manitoba has to offer was well on display with that panel discussion. Just a very, very high level. Minister Pedersen, we thank you so much for taking the time. As Felix said, that just speaks so much to how serious the government is about encouraging investment and really maximizing the mineral wealth potential of the province. Scott, great to see you. Felix, great to see you. We had the Aboriginal support there as well. Shastri, fantastic job leading the conversation. I think you guys covered all the main aspects and gave us lots to think about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.